That's a mistake. Let me zoom in here. Okay. Um. Whew. Okay. Let us begin. Okay. Buenos dias. If you were absent today, I suggest you watch this video so you can keep up with what we are going to be doing this week. So this week, what are we talking about? So for this week, we are going to talk about comparisons, right? You use them in everyday life, comparing this to that and that to this, right? Or these to those and those to that. So at the top of your page, make sure, or actually before, make sure you have a paper, pencil, and 3 color pencils or markers or pens or whatever, or crayons, right? So because we are focusing on comparisons, that should be the title of your notes, comparisons, right? So let's begin. What are comparisons? What do you think you are? Can you define it without using the word comparison in the definition? So, comparisons. So comparisons are used to indicate a lesser, equal, or greater amount of something, and that something in this case will be adjectives, adverbs, and nouns, right? So we have that down right there, and I'll give you some time to write this down. Pause if you need to, just because we have a lot to go through. So comparisons used to indicate a lesser, equal, or greater amount of something. Adjectives, adverbs, and nouns. So, for example, I'll take my first marker. In this case, I'll be using red. I just want to make sure you can see this. So, bring that down right there. So, let's begin. We're going to start off with menos interesante. Interesante. Which in this case, I'll use my second marker, means less interesting. Right? Right. Next one we're going to talk about, as an example, is más grande. Más with an accent over the A, and grande, which is bigger, right? Grande means big. Más, it adds a GER at the end, right? So, if menos interesante means less interesting, and más grande means bigger, what do you think tan delicioso como is? Take a second. You may not know it, which is perfectly fine. That's why we're learning it. So if menos interesante is used to indicate a lesser value, and más grande is indicated for a greater value, tan delicioso como, what do you think it is? It indicates the equal value, right? So in this case, tan delicioso como is as delicious as, right? Because delicioso is one of your vocab words, right? It's something you should be studying or should know at this point. So let's focus from right now on comparisons of inequality. So comparisons of inequality are formed by placing the word más, or more in this case, or menos to indicate less, before the adjective, the adverb, or the verb, or the noun, and que, in this case, then, after them, right? So, if we're talking about this is more than that, right? In this case, we're going to use más with accent over the A, and then insert our adjective, adverb, or our noun, and then que. So, you have also learned that que means what, right? But in this case, when we're focused on comparisons, que means than, right? Translates to than, T-H-A-N. So let's look at a construction or how it is set up, right? So I'm going to start off with my first marker. And right here, I will write más, accent over the A, slash menos. Then I will open my bracket, first one. So open bracket. And then here I'm going to write down adjective, adverb, as well as noun. Close our bracket. That's not a pretty bracket. Let's make it prettier. There you go, right? Our plus sign, and then plus que, Q-U-E. No accent, right? Because in this case, que means than, T-H-A-N, comparing two things, right? So this is the basic second sentence structure of comparing inequalities, right? Más, adjective, adverb, or noun, plus que. So we're going to look at a couple examples in a few, but I need to show you this. In class, I yelled this out loud. I just said, however, right? Just imagine that. It's me yelling that at the top of my lungs. There's something that needs to be pointed out. So, atención, or attention. So in English, we have the comparative form, right? For some adjectives. Imagine taller, bigger, smarter, shorter, harder, softer, etc., right? That is what we call our comparative form, or our adjectives that end in er in English, right? Which is what I have wrote in orange, right, for you. So while in English has the comparative form for some adjectives that end in er, these forms do not exist in Spanish. We don't have a suffix that ends in er to explain comparatives, right? We have AR, ER, IRs, but that's different, right? We don't have a suffix that is like in English, right? Bigger, smaller, taller, shorter, right? In Spanish, what we do, or what our comparative form is using más, or more, and menos, or less, right? So for example, instead of saying taller, in Spanish we would say más alto. Or its literal translation is more tall, right? We put them together, más alto is taller. So let's look at a couple examples here. So we're gonna do the first example we're gonna look at is with adjetivos, or with adjectives, right? So my black marker, I will write this sentence down with you, and you should follow along. So, first one. Los vistes son, now use my different color marker here, más, accent over the A, caros, que, go back to my black marker, el pollo. So maybe some words you may not recognize, maybe viste and caros. So let's see if we can try to translate, right? So we know that what is being compared is more than, right? Más means more, right? So what do you think viste is? It's related to food. If you said steak, you're correct. So let's write that down. Los vistes, and you don't pronounce the C, right? Viste. Los viste, or steak, is, which is son, right? Or in this case, actually, sorry. Steaks or vistes is plural, so we need to make steaks plural. Steaks are, and I'll choose a green marker here. We know más means more, right? Are more blank than el pollo, chicken. It could be delicious, in my opinion. Right? I think steaks are better, but not in this case, right? Not in this case. Caros means expensive. So los bistecs son más caros que el pollo. Or in English, steaks are more. My verb or my adjective here will be expensive in yellow or in orange. Que than el pollo, chicken. Right? That's an example with adjectives. Let me zoom in here a little bit for you. Right there. So, another example with adverbs. Do you remember what an adverb is? Adverbs are used to describe a verb, right? Or modifies the verb. So imagine our words that end in ly. Happily, sadly, swiftly, emotionally, tragically, verbs like that, right? However, there's some other type of adverbs, and let's look at an example. So, ready? Me acuesto. I'll use red again. Más, accent over the A. Tarde. Que. Go back to black. Tu, accent over the U with a period. So, let's see. Me is one of our known pronouns, right? Meaning that the action is happening to us. Me acuesto. You remember what that means? If you said, I go to bed early, or I go to bed más tarde que, I'll use green, means more, right? Más is more. Let me back it up. Más tarde, right? Tarde means late, later, right? In this case, so instead of saying more later than you, right? We don't say more later, we just say later. So I go to bed later. Que then, here go back to black marker, you do. And let me zoom out here so you can see what we're looking at. There you go. I'll keep it right there. So, that's another example, right? Now, let's look at an example with a noun. So, with a noun, we have Juan prepara, go back to red, más, accent over the A, platos que, go back to black, tu, accent over the U, period. So, we know a couple words already, right? Like the name, Juan, right? We know who Juan is, so we can rewrite him. Prepara is a cognate, similar to English. What does that word look like? If you said prepares, you're correct. Juan prepares. Más, we know what that is, more, right? Ooh, let me go, my bad. Go back to green marker. Platos, that's one of your vocab words. You should know that, right? Platos is not dishes in this case. It is what do you think it is? Oh, sorry, it doesn't mean plates. Sorry. In this case, platos does not mean plates. In this case, it means dishes. Right? We finish that off with then you. Give me a second. Okay, so now let's look at numerical expressions, right? So here, I'm just going to copy and paste this in so it's a little quicker and I can talk while you write this down. So, numerical expressions, right? So what we have talked previously is when we're comparing two things, right? However, there's times where we can compare it using numbers. So, when the comparison involves a numerical expression, the word de is used instead, or is used before the number instead of que. So here's the thing that I need to point out that I need you to understand. De and que both mean than, right? T-H-A-N. They both mean than, right? However, you cannot use de and que interchangeably. That is a big no. That is prohibited. You cannot. It will not work out. Okay? That's a big no. No. So, anytime you're using numerical expressions to compare, you need to use de. This one right here. Do not use que. No, that's not allowed. Sounds good? So, let's look at an example so we can compare, okay? So, I'll take my black marker and I'll write this down. And pause when needed so you don't fall behind. So, I'll leave this up here. There you go. So, let's write this example down. I must, accent over the A, go back to my red marker, de 50, which is our number, and chícharos, which is one of our vocab words. Chícharos. So my question to you now is, what is chícharos? That's one of our vocab, right? Chícharos means peas, right? Like peas in a pod, pea in a pod, right? If you got that right, give yourself a high five. So now let's translate hay más de 50 chícharos. What is 50? That's one of our numbers we learned all the way back in first try. 50. It's more than 10. It's more than 20. More than 40. It's the number between 49 and 51. And if you said 50 is 50, you are correct. So 50 peas, right? And we know más means more. And de means than. So more than 50 peas. So what is I? H-A-Y. This one right here. I. Hay más de 50 chícharos. If you said there are more, back in green, than 50 peas, you are correct. So because I'm running out of space, I'll go on to the next page. So I'll take this, pause if needed, right? And we'll do one more example before we move on. So let's do one more. So now I'm just going to go right here. And I want you to write down this with me. Llego en menos de 10 minutos. So we know what menos is, right? That's less. De means than. 10 is this number. 10, right? And minutos is a cognate, similar to English. So minutos is, if you say minutes, you're correct. So less than 10 minutes. Llego is the present tense of the infinitive llegar, which is to arrive, right? So when you're messaging your friend that you're picking them up in 10 minutes, you usually, or I would say, take my black marker, and then here, let me go back here, change de to red. So I'll be there, right? I'll be there is the llego part. En is in, menos is less. Go back to green. De, than. 10 minutos, minutes, right? So when your friend asks you, where are you? Or how far till you get, or how far away, right? You'll respond with, I'll be there in less than 10 minutes, right? So positive needed. And we'll move on. Okay. So continuing on, I am on the back side of the paper, right? Because I ran out of space. So now we're going to focus. So previously, we learned comparisons of inequality with adjectives, adverbs, and nouns. However, you can also compare using verbs, right? Action words. So let's focus for now on verb construction. So when you're using verbs to compare, right, we use this specific construction. And with this construction, we are focusing on comparing inequalities, right? So imagine faster than you, slower than him, taller than her, shorter than Jacob, or stronger than you, weaker than me, etc., 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 right? So the construction of this in Spanish, I'll take my black marker again, is we open the bracket, verb, we close the bracket, plus más, accent over the A, slash menos, que, right? So if we quickly look and compare, so here when comparing adjectives, adverbs, and nouns, right, it's más slash menos, so more or less, insert your adjective, adverb, or noun, and then you add que, right? With verbs, it's all you do is just move this right in front of here, right? If we look at the verb construction, it's your verb plus more or less than. Verb más or menos que. So let's do a couple examples together. I'll zoom out right there. And my example, you ready? Mis hermanos and we're going to use the verb corren, which actually, I forgot. I'll use my orange marker. Mis hermanos corren. Go back to my red marker. Más que, action over the A. Go back to black. Yo. So, corren, present tense of to run, right? So we know what más que means, right? More than, right? So, mis hermanos, what is that? It's someone who's related to you from your immediate family. If you said siblings, you're correct, right? Or my brothers, right? Hermanos, or it could be your brothers and your sisters. If there's a mixture of both, siblings. If it's just your brothers, like all guys, brothers, right? Siblings, same thing, right? So I'm going to say siblings here. My siblings. Go back to orange. Run. And then más que, right? More than. Here you can say I do, more than I do, more than I, more than me, etc., etc. Okay, does that make sense? Let's do one more example. Let's say we are meeting up with Jose and we are at a birthday party, right? And let's say they start playing music and Maria's there. and Maria's on the dance floor. Jose's sitting at the table. So we can see that Maria is dancing more than Jose, right? So now, let's do this. Jose, what is the infinitive of to dance? It's an AR verb. If you said bailar, you're correct. However, we don't say Jose to dance, right? We would say Jose dances, present tense, right? Jose dances. How would you say dances in Spanish? If you said baila, B-A-I-L-A, you're correct, right? So let's say Maria's dancing, Jose's sitting, right? So we would say Jose is dancing. If you said less than, you're correct, right? In Spanish, less than is menos que Maria. Now, translating this to English, Jose stays the same, right? Jose let me go back up. Jose dances. Go back to red. Oh, sorry. It's supposed to be green. Less than Maria. Same thing here. That's supposed to be green. Run more than I do. Okay? So, that's all we did for day one, right? Day one, we talked about what comparisons are. We talked about comparisons of inequality, meaning they are not the equal, right? There's no equal amount. It's either less, lesser, or greater than, right? We talked about the construction or forming that sentence, comparing, right? Más slash menos, more slash than, inserting your adjective, adverb, or your noun, plus que, than, right? We talked about how in English we have taller, greener, smaller, bigger, right? In Spanish, we don't have that suffix like we do in English. In Spanish, we have to use the words más or menos. We provide a couple examples for adjectives, adverbs, as well as noun. We talked about numerical expression, comparing with numerical, so there's more than 20 people. There's more than 100 dogs, etc., right? Then we also talked about the verb construction of comparing inequalities, right, with verbs. So we compared using adverbs, adjectives, and nouns, and how it differentiates than the construction of verbs comparison, right? So with comparing adjectives, adverbs, and nouns, it is más or menos, more or less, insert adverb, adjective, noun, que, than, right? So more, bigger than, más grande que, right? Comparing verbs, let's say faster, right? Or sorry, verb runs, right? So to run, or corre, right? Corre más que blank, runs more than blank. And we'll provide a couple examples. That was all we did for day one. Tomorrow will be day two. So we'll continue working on what we did yesterday and add more tomorrow. Sounds good? Have a good day, get some sun, and I will see you tomorrow.